Hello and welcome to another episode of Generally Speaking. I'm your host, Bill Lawrence. Today is Tuesday, August 19th, and what we have going on now is some pretty horrible stuff in our nation's capital, in Washington, D.C., with military forces all over the streets, threatening, scaring people left and right, taking a city where people were not afraid to walk in the streets and making everyone now afraid. And this is, of course, uh, something that we can expect to happen in more and more locations. This administration is swiftly becoming, if it isn't already, an authoritarian, totalitarian dictatorship is what it's becoming, because whatever Trump says is what he does. Nothing is stopping him right now. This is one of the most horrible scenes I have ever seen taking place in this country. It's going to hell in a handbasket. Some more of the wonderful things that the Trump administration has done. We've got a coal industry in this country, which has suffered some setbacks with the green energy initiatives, and coal, as dirty as it is, being shunned and relegated to a small segment of the U.S. Energy sector. But they found some life in shipping the coal overseas to other countries that still depend on coal, have a heavy reliance on it. However, these coal shipments go out on tanker ships, of course, and most people are not aware. I only recently found out that a great majority of the tanker ships are manufactured in China, and Trump has issues with China and with almost every other country. Decided to put a $1 million docking fee on any Chinese made ships coming into our ports. Well, um, they don't want to come into our ports now. So, how is this coal going to get shipped? It's not. And, well, what are the countries going to do that need the coal? They're going to find it elsewhere, namely Indonesia and Australia. So now another industry is collapsing in this country, the coal industry. Another wonderful move by the Trump administration. All right, I live right next door to Canada. Well, I don't physically, my country is next door to Canada. And I listen to a podcaster who's out of Canada, and he was talking about a strike going on, and I thought this was very relevant, just in terms of strikes, generally speaking, and the circumstances that bring them about, and the fight between corporations and the workers. This strike is taking place on an airline, Air Canada. It's the flight attendants, the people that walk through the aisles when you're in flight, asking you if you want another pillow. What's their issue? Well, pay for one thing. Well, people are always wanting more pay, right? This is more than just that. When you go to work, you punch in, and you're on the clock. That's when you get paid until you punch out. Not so for Air Canada flight handlers. When they punch in, they still have to get ready for the flight they're going on and get on the flight. And they're not being paid until they're actually on the flight. Well, okay, so, they're flight attendants. That's when they should get paid, right? This is getting nitpicking. But the thing is, they're not paid even when they're on the flight. They're only paid when the doors close and the wheels start rolling. And when the plane lands, and the wheels stop rolling, they're off the clock again. But in terms of pay, they're still expected to do all the things that flight attendants have to do, besides asking people if they want some peanuts and another pillow. There are all sorts of other activities. Comes turns out that if you look at a month's worth of time they've been working, there's a whole week that they've worked that they haven't been paid for. So this is the kind of BS that corporations just keep trying to push down the throats of workers. And now, to show how this always extends back up into the government, which always supports the corporations, they want to insist that the unions can't address the issue except with something called binding arbitration, which some kind of ridiculous kangaroo court. My apologies to the Australians. Some court system where these guys just decide, unions, you're wrong, and you have to go back to work. And while this is resolved, or if it isn't even resolved at all, it's resolved against you, you have to go back to work. The whole purpose of a strike is to upset things so that the business shuts down. And your work, your livelihood, the money that pays your rent and your food is now something you don't have because you are on strike. And hopefully, if you're in a union, it can give you something to help you out as you go along. But a lot of times, you're going to end up suffering. And the idea is to make the company suffer as well. And when the government says no, you have to go back to work, what do you think? I'm going to go back to work when I'm not going to get anything for it? No, I'm on strike. You don't understand what strike means. It means I'm not going back to work. And if the government tries to say, well, then you're going to be arrested, well, then there we go. Now we're having a problem. And at any rate, this is the kind of situation that exists in Canada right now. They are being supported by many other unions in Canada in their efforts to get a resolution. But I just wanted to mention that the fight, the struggle is constant for workers to maintain decency. And it's always the corporations trying to fight against them. All right, what else now? In the States, a congressman, a person who is a state senator, I think he's not in Washington, D.C., he's in his a local representative, has put out a video of his suggestions for what the Democrats need to do going forward, dealing with the loss that they had to Trump and how to regain votes. And he was proposing we need something like what the Republicans had with their Project 2025, where they had a bunch of things that they were planning to do that they solidified and focused on that. And so I wanted to just talk about some of the things that he had in mind. Taxes, for one thing, make the wealthy and the corporations pay more in taxes. Certainly can't argue with that. And it's not just paying the taxes, but getting rid of the loopholes. And then, of course, rebuilding the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, so that they can process these better. This is certainly something we need to have done. Then more attention needs to be paid on housing to get affordable housing. I'm not sure how you do that, considering housing is more or less a private affair. What are you going to tell people? You can only charge so much for rent now. You can only sell housing for such and such a price. Don't know what the answer is there, but certainly having that addressed is a very good thing to do. I think as long as we're doing that, we should also address the homelessness and the unemployed that we have, circumstances, um, things to do with that. Another point he had, the public option for Medicare, that people should be able to buy into the Medicare system, um, not just get it when you're retired, or not just get it when you're indigent. You should be able to get buy into it at any time, and there should be lower drug costs, and there should be greater insurer insurance company transparency, so people aren't being ripped off, which we see they are with that Luigi Mangione, who ended up shooting allegedly the CEO of one of the health insurance companies because they're just denying things left and right. We need a little more um, control over that. Something about education. We need more pre-K education, and for moms, we need prenatal care and paid maternity leave, and accessible college and trade schools. Yes, these are all very good. You know what I think is very interesting about it is essentially saying, we want to be more like Europe and Japan and so many other countries in the world that already provide these obvious factors that the U.S., so behind, like primitive, backwards country on this earth, should have had a long time ago. What else? Government agencies should have an audit. Yes, well, for fiscal responsibility, there should definitely be audits. But if you want to talk about the biggest audit in the world, of course, it's the Pentagon, the military, which famously has never been able to complete an audit since audits of them were required some 7 years ago. Never able to complete an audit. Now, there's one that really needs some attention. I was reading an article, reading an article is what it was about a certain money supply that actually exists that nobody knows anything about except this person with his investigation and others looking into it found out there is some parts of the budget that are not in any budget. They're discussed behind closed doors. It's word of mouth. The monies get transferred only by the people that are involved with it, and no one else knows it's happening. But there's billions of dollars going who knows where, essentially, and that would be something needed to be looked into. Another thing that needs to be done: ending gerrymandering, and I surely agree with that. I wish I could adjust my video so that I had a better view. I'll learn how to do this at some point. But ending gerrymandering and voter suppression. Right now, Trump is putting out an executive order. He's trying to end mail in voting, that there shouldn't be any mail in voting. And so just the usual stopping of voting accessibility. And another thing this person suggested: more police officers and gun reform. More police. This person was speaking from the point of view that crime is rampant, high crime everywhere, and that more police officers are the answer. No, more police officers are not the answer. Now, let's just say, even if you want to grant that perhaps, well, there could be something to that. Something that needs more attention than that is how the police behave. Police behave in in despicable ways. I'm not saying they all do. There are cops who behave just like normal people you expect should behave, but a lot of them are animals, absolute animals. And there needs to be civilian review boards. There needs to be special reviews to watch these people and get them fired. So there's something we need as far as policing goes. What else? There should be more abortion rights and protections for the non-cis people. Cis, CIS. It means I don't even know what it means, but if it means straight people. Cis. I'm sure it's short for something, but protection for the non-straight people. Next, immigration. We need some more immigration judges to process the people who want asylum. And we should have more a path open to citizenship, especially for the people that came here as babies, infants, that had nothing to say about how they got here. Then we need to improve our international standing. And you could say a lot of things about that. Everybody would have different ideas, strength through strength or something. And that's how we become friendly, or we do nice deals. Well, I'm for a better international standing because we're in the trash right now. Now, I have some addendums of my own I wanted to add to what this person is saying. Our Congress, they need to get the same medical coverage as the general population. This way, they can know what it's like, and then they could pass laws about um, medical coverage more enthusiastically. They should have no lifetime pay for sitting there one term. In no business in this world, you get work for 1 year, work for 4 years, one term, and then you have retirement for the rest of your life. No, maybe they can have it after 20 years. That's the way it is in most companies, retirement after 20 years, but not immediately. Another one, no their pay, the congressional pay should be just tied to inflation. That's all they get. Another thing, they should not be paid at all whenever there's a government shutdown. All the federal employees, they don't get paid, but Congress gets paid. Let them not get paid. Another one, when bills are put forth, proposed in Congress, there should only be one subject on it, not 20 different items tacked on so that something you don't like that's horrible gets attached to something you do want, and now you have to accept the bad because you want to get the good. There should only be one subject on every bill. The next thing, no bills should be passed without there being enough time to read and know what is in the bill. All right. Another one, sometimes Congress people flip parties. They get voted in as a Democrat or Republican, and then they switch parties to become Republican or Democrat. If they do that, they should all be required to immediately go through a new election. They should immediately go before their constituents to see if they're going to be elected again. Now, the Supreme Court, there are a lot of things suggested about the Supreme Court. My suggestion is that the Supreme Court should be picked every time there's a presidential election. It should be picked four by the Republicans and four of them by the Democrats. And then whichever party has the president will pick the Supreme Court, the head justice. The tie-breaking person would be by whichever party is currently at the top. So that's what that should be. And so those are those things. What else? The farm workers are disappearing. Crops are rotting in the field because the farm workers are largely illegal immigrants, and they're not in the fields anymore. So crops are not being picked. Animals are not being tended to. The meat factories are not being populated. Everything going downhill. Something just came up recently. Hamas and Israel agreed to a ceasefire. Something's going on here. Of course, part of the issue is Israel is just getting hit left and right with, first of all, huge protests in the streets are growing larger and larger, and there's a flight leaving of the billionaires. Capital is leaving, and I just lost the battery on my phone, so this is going to be the end of this discussion. Any rate, there are my things for today. I think I gave a good report. And look, it came out a little bit shorter. Listen, please like and subscribe and make comments. I like hearing comments. And all of you, be good.